Martin have cut a big hole out of the DB12. But don't worry, it was deliberate. They wanted to make this DB12 Volante the ultimate version of the DB12. But as with all coupes that become convertibles, the question is, have they taken the Super out of the Super Tourer? So, to recap, with the latest DB12 coupe, Aston Martin claimed it had invented a whole new type of car, a car that offered both a razor-sharp driving experience and true luxury over long distances. It named this duality the Super Tourer. Tough brief, but Aston nailed it. The DB12 is awesome. The thing is, when you turn a coupe into a convertible, it fundamentally affects performance. This is engineering 101. Lose the pillars and the metal roof, the car gets wobblier, comfort and handling suffer. So, to fix that, you need to strengthen it. And also, you need to put in a mechanism to be able to put the roof up and down. The result, car gets heavier, handling and performance suffer. Not only that, but you pay 15 grand extra for the privilege, making this DB12 Volante £200,000. So, it looks very cool, but with all these downsides, is it worth it? Spoiler alert, the answer is yes. There is no sense that this is the softer DB12. Everything that is great about the coupe is here, and more, because now you've got the added noise and sunshine. Well, sometimes. The Volante is quite a bit heavier than the coupe, 111 kilos heavier, a whole Anthony Joshua if you like, and that means it's a little slower to 62 miles an hour, a tenth of a second. So it now takes 3.7. You don't miss that tenth of a second though. This thing is rapid. And not only that, but with the roof down, you get to fully enjoy the onslaught of the noise from that mid-front mounted 4-litre twin-turbo V8. 680 horsepower, 800 newton meters of torque, all going to the rear wheels. And it puts its power down so well. The steering is really light and very responsive. Aston Martin have tuned the steering column specifically so that you can really feel the road through the wheels. That's really unusual for a Tourer. It means that it gives you a lot more confidence when you're going into the corners. Makes it a lot more fun to drive. But let's just pause for a moment and take a look at it, because if it doesn't look the part, we might as well just all go home. This is an Aston Martin after all. It's basically designed to give you a big fat dopamine hit the moment you lay eyes on it. And according to Aston Martin, the DB12 Volante puts the air in debonair. Fair play to them. Looks pretty good, huh? It's much bolder looking than the DB11 Volante. It's got a 56% larger grille to allow more air to cool the radiator and a much more aggressively sculpted bonnet. It's very nice. They say it has a 6mm wider front track, a 22mm wider rear track, which gives it broad shoulders that intimidate with every added inch. Someone should maybe tell them there aren't many inches in 22mm, less than one, in fact. The DB12 uses a headlight design generated by AI, which gives it a more focused light beam. And just behind that, you'll find the familiar front strake behind the wheel, a feature that's appeared on every DB product, here helping to reduce lift. And it's one of the first cars to use the new Michelin Pilot Sport S5 tyres, here wrapping a new 21-inch alloy wheel design. But we need to talk about the roof, obviously, because this is not cheap fabric. This is 8 layers of fabric designed to keep noise to an absolute minimum inside the cabin. Not only that, but it takes 14 seconds to open and close, which is about the same time as it would take me to finish this sentence. And notice how low and sleek the Volante's rear is. It's worth quoting Aston Martin at this stage, who say that it puts the lumpen efforts of its package-compromised rivals to shame. That's fighting talk, that is. But fair play. Most convertibles' rears are rather lumpy, but not this one. And that is down to the fact that it has a K-fold system. So when the roof folds down, it folds so low, just 26 centimetres thick, which means there is a lot more boot space. In theory. I mean, 262 litres, which is less than a Ford Fiesta. But hey, a Ford Fiesta does not have 680 horsepower. I mean, you need a lot of Fiestas to make 680 horsepower. And a moment to talk about how stunning this interior actually is. It's a giant leap up from the DB11 with its haphazard buttons and odd vents and tiny aftermarket-looking infotainment screen. They call this centre console the waterfall area because of the way it flows down from the dash. It's all really pretty now and much easier to use. You still get buttons and dials for all the stuff you want to operate on the move, like volume, temperature, and most importantly, making the exhaust louder. And it's cleared at the top of the dashboard, which is swathed in beautifully stitched leather. Oh, and one touch specific to the Volante is that the wood veneer, or carbon fibre panels on the seat back, matches the finish in the doors, because you can see them both when the roof is down. It might not be quite as opulent as a Bentley Continental, but it all feels very fresh. I mean, it's a big step up, in my opinion, compared to the Ferrari Roma, particularly when it comes to the infotainment system. This one feels really modern. And the Bowers & Wilkins sound system is so good, even with the roof down. I think we can all agree. It feels pretty special. What's it like to drive? Well, I don't mean to harp on about it, but the roof was always going to be the thing that makes or breaks this car. And I would say that this is about as good a convertible as you can get. Aston say that you can put the roof up or down in speeds of up to 30 miles an hour. And not only that, but you can do it with a headwind of the same speed. So hypothetically speaking, you could do it in a hurricane. Not that you would ever want to do that in a hurricane, but good to know that it's strong. And the impressive thing is that all those layers in the roof really work. So when the roof is up, you have a very well insulated, very quiet, and very refined car. And, fun fact, the tyres have a layer of polyurethane in them, which helps keep road noise to an absolute minimum. So, when you've got the lid up, you'll barely hear the wind, or the road, or the rain, or the hail on the roof. If the weather's on your side, you're going to love sitting inside this thing. You get 2 seat options. If you wanted to feel more like a tourer, go for the comfort seats, as fitted to this car. They are very comfy, and I would happily sit in these for a long journey. Or, if you want to get more sporty and have a bit more support in the corners, get the performance seats. Whether you drive it fast or slow, the DB12 Volante does a really great job of being a tourer. Placid and soft one moment, but then turn it into sport or even sport plus mode, and the character changes completely. I mean, now it feels like it's airing on the supercar side of the equation. God, it handles so well. It really doesn't feel like it loses much in comparison to the coupe. I mean, on the road, it is sharp as you want it to be. Super agile and responsive. Oh, it's good. And that's down to the DB12's aluminium chassis, which was developed specifically with the Volante in mind, meaning Aston Martin didn't make the coupe then have to solve the problems associated with cutting a big hole in the roof from scratch. Work has been done though. There's a new engine cross brace, improving lateral stiffness, the rear suspension mounting points are upgraded, and the front axle is stiffened by 140%. I really like the adaptive suspension. On the DB11, there wasn't a massive difference between comfort and sport, but here, there's a 500% increase in bandwidth. So comfort is really comfortable, and sport plus, I mean, the character changes completely. So, if you're looking for a DB12 just to cruise around posing in Mayfair, then potholes will not be too much of a problem. But if you're considering this car because you want to chuck it around in the B roads, then sport mode keeps the body in control, stops it rolling around in the corners. It's also fantastic in a straight line, having 800 Newton meters of torque to play with, which means the DB12 does enjoy throwing itself towards the horizon, violently. A word of warning though, the engine does rely heavily on its turbos. Peak torque is supposed to come in between 2,750 to 6,000 RPM, but the car doesn't really burst into life until about 4,000 RPM. You have to keep this on the boil to get the best from it, which is great when your brain is in supercar mode, but when you're lolloping about in tourer mode, you do sometimes feel like you want a little bit more at low revs. Can we just take note of the fact as well that I have not had to put my hair up? That is how good the wind protection is in this car. That means that you can drive it in the winter or on a day like this and still keep your wig in check. The gearbox is fantastic though. It's a torque converter rather than a twin clutch, which really suits this car's character because the gear changes are so smooth and it's proper quick shifting in sport mode. And I love the feel of these paddles, they're so tactile. This car gives you a lot of confidence. Makes it so fun to drive. It's really hard not to love this DB12 Volante. And as a drop top, it's never going to have quite the same sharpness as the coupe. And thanks to the roof, it has a sense of occasion that only convertibles can bring. It's very, very good and very easy to recommend. Oh, I love it. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe and check out Rory's review of the DB12 Coupe. Meanwhile,